You know, we all have a picture of Jesus in our minds. And for a lot of people, that picture is a gentle, smiling, maybe even soft-spoken figure. But is that the full picture? Today, we're diving into a source that throws a wrench in that popular image with a pretty provocative question. Was Jesus just nice, or was he something way more powerful? What this source calls eternally effective.
So the source material doesn't waste any time. It kicks right off with this powerful idea. It's basically saying there's a huge gap between how our culture thinks about being good, being agreeable, positive, never rocking the boat, and the actual person we meet in the biblical texts. It's a clash of ideas that really makes you think. The author calls the biblical version more bracing, and well, that's exactly what we're about to unpack.
All right, so where did this nice-only view of Jesus even come from? According to the source, it's pretty much a modern invention. A culturally shaped figure that might just be missing some really crucial and maybe, just maybe, some uncomfortable pieces of the puzzle.
And this is where you can really see the split. On the one hand, you have the modern Jesus, who comes off as this kind of spiritual life coach, right? All about positive vibes and self-love. But then, on the other hand, the source points us to the biblical Jesus, who, well, he talks a lot about judgment, demands we deny ourselves, and is laser-focused on holiness. The argument here isn't that these are just slightly different. No, it's that they're practically opposites.
So how does the source even begin to back this up? Well, this isn't about opinions. Instead, it goes straight to the source material, the scriptures, to show how these two seemingly contradictory portraits, the gentle and the severe, are actually presented side by side. And often, they're coming from Jesus himself.
And here it is. These are the words so many of us know and love. This is that gentle, compassionate Jesus offering rest to anyone who's worn out. And look, that's an incredibly important part of his ministry, and it is absolutely true. But the question the source makes us ask is it the whole truth?
And then you get this, spoken by the exact same person. These are words of absolute, final judgment. This is the jarring contrast, the whiplash, the source wants us to feel. It's not one or the other. The biblical texts give us both the invitation to rest and the warning of eternal fire, spoken from the very same mouth. Now, it'd be pretty easy to just write off those hard words as, rare exceptions, but the research in this source goes deep. It actually maps hundreds of scriptures. And the conclusion it draws is that this severity isn't some weird outlier. Instead, it's woven right into the fabric of God's character, totally inseparable from his love and justice. They're presented as two sides of the very same coin. So you have to wonder, how can these two extremes possibly fit together? The source proposes this key concept it calls holy love. And this isn't just some warm, fuzzy feeling. No, this is a love so committed to a person's ultimate good that it's willing to speak hard truths, to expose dangerous sin, and to give really urgent warnings. It's the exact opposite of what the author calls sentimental negligence, which is basically just smiling and nodding while you watch someone walk straight towards a cliff.
And this gets us to the absolute core of the argument. Why would a loving figure ever use such severe language? The answer from this source is pretty radical. It claims it's not in spite of his love, but because of it. This severity, it argues, actually has a saving purpose.
Let's just walk through the logic here for a second. First, the Bible says that judgment is a real, terrible danger. Okay, so second, if that danger is real, then warning people about it isn't mean, it's actually merciful. Which leads to the big conclusion, Jesus' hard words aren't a failure of niceness, they're an expression of a love that is effective for all eternity.
And here's the source's most challenging claim, just laid out bare. A so-called love that's too nice to warn someone about real danger? That isn't love at all. It's a failure to care. It's choosing to make someone feel good right now over caring about what happens to them forever.
This source then goes on to show that this pattern of holy love didn't just stop with Jesus. His closest followers, the apostles, they picked up the very same model. And the point here is that this wasn't just Jesus' personal style, but a blueprint for the entire early church. And wow, the examples are pretty intense. You have John the Baptist calling the religious leaders a brood of vipers. You've got Peter confronting a couple for lying, which leads to their immediate deaths. Paul says that anyone preaching a false gospel should be accursed, and the Apostle John tells believers not to even let false teachers into their homes. Yeah, that is not the language of modern niceness.
So what was the point of all this? Well, according to the source, it wasn't just about being abrasive for the sake of it. There's a deep theological reason. The apostles believed that the risen Christ was actively leading his church, and real leadership isn't just about comfort. it also includes clear correction and loving discipline to protect everyone.
Okay, so let's pull all these threads together. What does it all add up to? The challenge from this source is for us to move beyond a simple one-dimensional view and to embrace the whole, complex, and, well, eternally effective picture of Christ.
You can actually boil the source's whole argument down to a pretty simple logic. If hell is a real place, then warning people about it is a kind thing to do. If holiness is actually required, then discipline isn't cruel, it's merciful. And if truth really matters for salvation, then setting boundaries isn't mean, it's necessary and loving. Each one of those hard actions gets reframed as an act of love.
And this, right here, is really the final challenge. The source argues that we don't get a menu of divine attributes to pick from. You know, we can't just take the comfort and leave the holiness, or take the mercy but reject the judgment. The challenge is to engage with the whole picture, just as it's presented.
And so we're left with this one big question that really gets to the heart of everything we've talked about. If we truly believe in a love that is powerful enough to save us for all of eternity, does that very same love have to be serious enough to warn us, to confront us, and to discipline us along the way? It's a thought that completely challenges a simple definition of nice and invites a much, much deeper look.